É Cristo ou é caos?
You kind of go back a few years ago when the Christian consensus pretty much governed this nation. How did we lose it? What has been wrong with evangelicals, even up to the present day, that keeps them from getting involved in any kind of thing like this?
I think a false view of spirituality, a Platonic view of spirituality, which follows Plato, the philosopher Plato, Greek philosopher, but certainly isn't biblical. And that is that spirituality is shut up to a small area of life. Or you can say that the soul is important, the body isn't important, would be a quick fix on the thing. What we must realize that in this view, everything is worldly that isn't in this little box of spirituality. Now, as I look at the Bible, this is exactly 1,000% backwards. There are certain sinful things that God tells us are sinful, and we ought to take those and set them aside. And then we must acknowledge we're sinners too. None of us are perfect. But nevertheless, we should set them aside. And then everything else is spiritual.
Well, elaborate on that. Everything then in the world, because you're saying that Jesus has a plan and a worldview and a purpose. He's not just God of the church, he's God of everything.
Absolutely. He made it.
Yeah.
And one day, the wonder is Jesus is coming back, and there's going to be the redemption of all things, as Peter said immediately after Jesus' ascension. And we're going to be raised from the dead. Paul emphasizes that in 1 Corinthians 15. If we're not going to be raised from the dead, Christianity is a total failure. It means nothing. God is interested in the totality of life. Art, music, literature, but also the political life. So true spirituality means the lordship of Christ in the totality of life and not just a small part of it.
The liberal press particularly would try to keep conservative Christians, if you will, or evangelicals out of political life, and there's this great pressure to make fun of you when you get, quote, in politics, and they don't think it should be, and there are many Christians who say yes to the same thing. Now, what do you say to them?
Well, they're wrong.
Okay, that settles that. But Christians should do what? Run for office, vote, register, get involved? What ought they to do?
Well, we ought to realize that in the viewpoint of the Scripture, life is not divided up into watertight compartments. That all of life should be lived for the lordship of Christ. Now, what exact portion each one of us should have is according to the Lord's leading for us. So we cannot lay down rules for people. They must look to the Lord directly to know. But the principle to lay down, yes, the rule to lay down, is that Christians have a responsibility for the society in which they live. We're to be the salt. We're to be the light. And I would say this with absolute firmness. We are not in the mess we're in this country and throughout the world, and especially think of the Reformation countries, and specifically the United States. We're not in the mess we're in because of a humanist conspiracy. I think there is a humanist conspiracy. That's not the reason we're in trouble. The reason we're in trouble is the church has not really followed out the concept of the lordship of Christ in the totality of life in these last 40 years. And that being so, by our silence, by refusing to be what God tells us to be, the light of this culture, and so on, the salt of the culture, we are the ones responsible before God for the mess we're in.
Well, now,